So you said at about age 6, you noticed that your normal wasn't so normal.
Right. I was in, kindergarten, first grade, and I was like, there's something different here. What is this? So
What was it?
I we were partying all the time. There was fights, and everybody I grew up with, they were going to church. We live here in Utah, so a lot of tight-knit families. There's a lot of moms that would come in and help our classroom, and my mom couldn't do that. My dad was gone a lot.
Were they both working full-time?
My dad was at that time. My mom was not. She was staying home with us. My dad worked construction, and he would go all over, out of town a lot. I didn't realize at the time, but there was some jail time served, there. Looking back, I was like, oh, now I see that, So I started noticing that, because I'm around a lot of other kids now, in kindergarten and stuff. And I just, it's funny because I do remember is partying, thinking that, like, I would go to the store. This is when you could, like, smoke in Kmart and stuff. And I would be like, okay, what people are smoking and what people are not, what people are buying beer and what people are not. Like, I started noticing that, which is weird, right? At 6 years old to start thinking that, and I was like, okay, you know what? My dad's cool. Like, I thought he was like this cool, handsome guy. He had this strut. He drinks beer and he parties, and that's what I want to do, And I started taking inventory of people around me.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, we start to, like you're saying, we kind of identify with our parents and what they do. There's a certain period of a window of time as a kid where you want to be like your parents and you think they're kind of the standard. So, yeah, absolutely. And then a little girl to her dad, that's sort of a particular kind of admiration that happens. And I'm sure that you're kind of thinking, yeah, my dad's, he's the man.
Yeah, I did.
And so, do you remember the first time you tried alcohol?
Oh yeah, it was a Super Bowl party, and we're partying up. All my dad's family's there, and I was like, I'm gonna drink. I was probably like 7 years old the first time I tried alcohol, and I was like, cool.
And you were saying earlier that parties at your house were pretty standard, pretty normal.
Yep. There's a lot of parties.
So, just for the listeners and maybe for me, what does that look like when you say partying at your house? What was going
on? So my mom was a normie. Like, she didn't drink a lot. It kind of made her sick. But my dad's side of the family were really heavy drinkers. So we would have my dad's brothers all come over, their wives, some friends, and we just drink and drink and drink.
So your house was a happening place. That was a place where all the aunts and uncles and their friends came. So you're around. You're the oldest, and that's kind of unique too, because as the oldest children tend to identify with their parents because they don't have older siblings to identify with. So you probably wanted, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably wanted to be around the action because you felt like a grown-up.
Oh, heck yeah. I wanted to be right there in the middle of it.
And that might have
that
explained why at 7 you were like, I want to do what they're doing. I want to try a drink.
So did you sneak the drink? Or did somebody offer you the drink? Or was it like, I'm just wondering what your mindset was like, I'm just going to take this beer. I'm going to go out back. I'm going to see what this is all about.
It was a mixed drink just sitting there on the table. And I was like, cool, I'm going to drink it. My mom definitely would have stopped me. But I think my dad would have been like, oh, this is cool. Let's give this kid some booze. This kind of.
And it's interesting you mentioned that your parents were still in high school when they had you, and we'll get to how you feel about your parents and what your relationship with them is like. But just from that point of view, the term arrested development often comes up when a person at any important developmental stage gets their development interrupted. And so that adolescent time, when all of a sudden you go from being a teenager to being a parent where all your friends are still just teenagers, there's something that happens there where people often kind of get a little stuck in that adolescent mindset. And so, if a 30-year-old who then has a child, they've gone through all that time and they're well past it, probably wouldn't think, oh, it's funny that my 7-year-old would drink a mixed drink. But unfortunately, and no fault of your dad's necessarily, I can see how somebody who kind of got their adolescence taken away from them by having to jump to this higher level of parental responsibility might still be sort of immature themselves. Is that kind of what you felt?
Yep, absolutely. And as we go through, I can relate a lot to that.
So you drank for the first time at age 7. Do you remember it changing you in any way? Do you remember feeling the effects of the alcohol?
Not at 7. I felt like I didn't get a buzz or anything. You know, it was like a hurry, take a drink. You know, and I was like, hey, to my sister, you know, let's drink this, and she's like, no, you're crazy. Not at 7. No, I just thought I was cool. Like,
Yeah. No, I get it.
drank,
Yeah.
you know, like
I mean, similar to me. I mean, I'm sure that I have a pretty similar story to that. I mean, my parents had the party house. When people came over, nobody walked in empty-handed. It was either a couple of bottles, 12 packs, whatever it was, because they were there to party, and that was it. And it was Friday night boxing. It was Saturday night this. You know what I mean? Any event was an event to show up with alcohol, and we partaked in it, and it was okay.
And so this is a good example of, you know, some people grew up in homes where their parents entertained a lot, and some people didn't. My parents didn't really entertain, and so I didn't have any, you know, like lots of adults coming over and spending, but you guys both did, and that's just a unique difference of our upbringing.
I can remember being 8 years old and my dad inviting his friends over because they were building a bar. They were building a bar in our house, and it was a nice bar, and there was a pinball machine next to it, and that was the focal point of his group of friends for probably the next 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To go to the Scots, they got a bar, and it was loaded. And I mean, that was, and all the kids, they bring their kids over, and we'd run around outside, and
Yeah.
and we'd play around, and I mean, that was our friend group. It was.